It's great that you have this ministry to people who've been in broken relationships and keeping the cycle. Tell us something about it. How did it come about?
Yes, my book He Loves Me Not really came out of my own experiences of being through broken relationships. I had been through a cycle of going from one dating disaster and one failed romance. I have a failed marriage, and I had long-term relationships that had all gone very wrong. And I found myself in this cycle. One day I had one of those sort of eureka moments at the age of 32 when I realised actually the argument I'm having with my present partner, who I'd been with for 7 years, was the same argument I was having with my boyfriend at the age of 15. So that's quite a long time to be going through the same problems and never really moving on, never really getting past those problems. And I think it was that moment I had a real moment of despair, and I thought, wow, things haven't changed. And I was looking at how I'd tried to change my life. I thought, well, I've changed jobs, I've changed house, I've moved into a new area, I'm not with the same person anymore, I've even changed partners, but I'm still going through the same problems. And I looked at all the different ways I tried to solve the problem, and I thought, well, I'm just out of solutions. I really don't know what to do. And at that moment, I went into a bit of a depression. I realised that nothing had changed. But bearing in mind, I was not walking with God at that point. I was very much out there on my own, trying to do life in the best way that I knew how. And I was failing quite badly.
So was it at that time that you met the Lord?
Well, it was a bit of a process. I think for about a year, I felt God really starting to speak to me. I had an interlude with Christianity at the age of 17. I'd got involved in the church. I had been, back then my experience had been, my parents had been in an abusive relationship together. So by the time I was 15, 16, I was really broken, very fearful of people, had no confidence, had no sense of self-worth, thought there was something very wrong with me, that our family was really different. So I went into my teens with this sort of really poor self-image, and at that point I did meet a group of Christians who encouraged me to go to their church. But unfortunately, the church that I attended was one where there was a lot of spiritual control. So the emphasis was more on how you looked, whether you were dressing correctly and eating correctly, rather than developing a relationship with God. So that really turned me off, turning to God for answers. I felt that I had to change myself before I could come to Him. And I found that very difficult. I just found that impossible to do, really. So at the age of 32, I'd never sort of given up on the concept that God existed. I just didn't believe that I could follow Him in the way I thought I was meant to be following, which was to give up all my bad habits before He would accept me. So I felt God start to speak to me, and I had this overwhelming sense to pray. And it was during that time that I had this experience, and my time in prayer began to really increase. And I came to God, and I said one day, you know, I've tried to change my life in so many ways, and nothing has changed. And He said, yes, but you haven't tried me. And that really got me thinking. And the partner I was with at the time, you know, we were in a destructive relationship. I think I was at rock bottom financially, emotionally. I was just not in a very good place. And God had led me to think about leaving this relationship. It wasn't, you know, God kept saying to me, two people can't walk together unless they agree. I knew our relationship was over, but I never had the strength to leave it. I felt quite controlled and very put down, so I never had the inner strength to do anything about it. I felt this was it. This is, you know, I'd made my bed. I better lie on it, and this is as good as it's going to get. So God helped me to make a decision about leaving that relationship. And at that point He said to me, you know, Jo, you can go back to Him if you want to, or you can walk into the unknown with me and take a new path. And I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, I've been down this road many, many times. I know what that cycle looks like. I know what to expect. And I said, God, you know, I'm willing to take that step of faith. and walk with you into the unknown. And that was the best decision I ever made. And that really was the beginning of the cycle breaking for me.